Shabbos, everyone. Oh, wait. Oh, good. It's a well-oiled machine. Yes.
Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam.
Well, it's good that everyone has their dryer sheets tonight. For those online, if you don't know what we're talking about, that's okay. We'll talk about that at a different time, but it's a good Shabbos to be here together. Find someone you're sitting near who you may or may not know. Introduce yourself to them. Bring a little Shabbos joy to our community right now. It's nice that we're here together. You'll tell me at the end of services if dryer sheets work or not. And now that Jesse's almost here, we can almost begin. I'm just kidding. Just take the dryer sheet, Jesse. Don't ask the questions. Just know it's safe. He probably thinks like, did I smell? Is it something I'm wearing? People online right now are really confused. We'll just tell you there are some wrinkles. Need to iron them out, and we're all... What? That was not an age comment. What's wrong? Hey, so it's been a long week. So it's good that we have our Shabbos time together. Time for a little peacefulness, a little calm. The busyness of our lives and the hecticness of what we create. And so we find ourselves here in the garden, finally outside again, after a few weeks where the weather didn't cooperate. We can feel a nice breeze on our cheek. Some of us have the sun on us right now. I don't know. Halfway through the service, you'll be in the shade, don't worry. But the idea of our time is just to make the most of this time. So maybe close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Breathe out through your mouth. Breathe in God's gift to each and every one of us. Breathe out our gift to this world. Part of our time on Shabbat is to appreciate the blessings that are here each and every day. The busyness of what we experience, sometimes we forget about that. Sometimes life smacks us on the side of the head and reminds us it in the worst of ways. It still gives us a chance to know the blessing of community, the people who we sit with, people who protect us. The very air we breathe, the fact that we wake up refreshed, renewed each day. The idea of the sun that we feel on our cheek warming us, or the cool breeze that hits us as evening approaches. These things happen all the time. But do we ever pause and notice? There's a tradition that when we wake, when we start each day, We give thanks for everything that works in our body, in our world. We rise up when we feel something different. The ancients said, actually, that we'd say a blessing that says, for all of the openings and closings of my body. How peculiar. But they understood that sometimes those things don't work. And so we give thanks for that. We say, Asher Yatzar, I thank you, God, for creating me the way I am. For the blessings that I can appreciate, especially on a night of Shabbat.
I thank you for my life, body and soul. Help me realize I am beautiful and whole. I'm perfect the way I am, and a little broken too. I will live each day as a gift I give to you, my God, my God. Whoa. 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 Baruch atah Adonai. Rofer ubasar umafli la'asot. Baruch atah Adonai. Rofer ubasar umafli la'asot. My God, my God. Whoa. 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 Whoa.
So with that perspective and awareness, so can we rise together now as we come as a community for our call to worship for our Baruch Hu.
God, 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 God
As we stand together, so we're reminded as we prepare for Shema, remind ourselves of that idea that we listen. We listen to our world, we Shema, we hear God's presence, even in the midst of challenges. That's why the ancients said we would say Shema 3 times a day, at least when we wake and when we go to sleep, maybe one time in the midst of that too. Make us aware that we listen, to be a little more adept at sensing what's around us, that perspective. And why they said we close our eyes in the midst of this prayer. So we focus inward, bring the blessings into our world a little more. Please be seated. We hear the sirens, we're reminded there's a blessing we say in our tradition that we don't get frustrated by sirens. We say, Baruch atah Adonai, that God should help them get where they need to be as soon as they can to take care of those in need. So they don't disturb us in these moments. We need them to get to where they need to be as we say that blessing together. With that in mind, we join the Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'yivarta bam v'shivtecha v'beitecha uvlaktecha b'derech uvshoftecha uvkumecha uvshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotavot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem ekol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihyot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. A prayer we say traditionally every night before we go to sleep reminds us again of the fragility of life. That fact that we never know what tomorrow brings. But that we want to hold on to the blessings that we feel in this moment right now. Maybe it's even in saying this prayer, it's memories that we hold on to too. Because us being here makes us keenly aware of the realities, but also of that which is good in our life. Those that have touched us and connected to us and lift us up. The reality of what we can control. Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning talks about there's so much that we can't control in our world, in our lives, so much unknown. For Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, he said, what we always can control are our thoughts. The one choice we make is what we make ourselves aware of, what we tune ourselves into. And obviously he had the strongest of minds, for he spoke about being on a death march in the freezing cold and the miserable realities of what he was experiencing and thinking of his wife. And as he writes about it, it's the most aware and romantic reality that he feels in taking himself away from the physical to that which was beautiful, to suspending that which was happening to his body, but making his mind stronger than that. I guess maybe it takes a brilliant mind to do that, and I'm not sure if most of us have that strength, but what we can do is sense that which is good, the blessings that we have. Never take them for granted. And I think in saying Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom Ba'amidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, we're saying just that. We're saying to ourselves that I want to make sure I'm aware. The words mean let us lie down in peace, God, and permit us to wake up in the security of knowing we are safe and loved. Be a shield around us. Keep enemies, disease, violence, homelessness, hunger far away from those we love. Make sure that we take care of what we have. Protect ourselves, knowing that we don't do it alone, that we're in this together, so that we hold on to our blessings.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomrenu L'chaim. Spread your shelter, so my God, guide us with wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomrenu L'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomrenu L'chaim.
To prepare for the Amidah and our central prayers of worship, we're told that traditionally we say the prayer twice through. And so that's why we take a moment of silence, of reflection at first. That's we go through the traditional brachot, the traditional benedictions. Each of them are a long way. But the reason why we say it twice is because what happens if everyone didn't know the words? And I love the idea of tradition saying that we make sure we're including everyone. We make sure that our prayers are connecting with everyone. So we like to use our silent prayer as one wherever our mind takes us, right? Wherever it goes in these moments, we say, this too is holy. And so this poem by Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel that talks about the beauty of Shabbat should help us connect a little more with our world. You know, having just returned from Israel, the reality of living in a Jewish world where everything does change, where suddenly at 1:30 on Friday afternoon the stores close, even if you didn't get a chance to buy your challah. Doesn't matter. Shabbat's on the horizon, and the world knows that. And as you walk back home, people on the street at the bus stop say Shabbat Shalom, and something changes. The reality of that lifts you up, makes you more aware. So for our silent prayer, think of that. Think of Shabbat, think of your own prayers in your own hearts, and then we'll join together in the Amidah after. That was the cue for the silent prayer. Your melody is a silent prayer, dude. That was perfect.
has blown the marketplace away. There's a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the world, scattering the sun in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day, and eternity utters a day. Place away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the world, scattering the sun in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day, and eternity utters a day. Please rise. Adonai Svatai, Svatai Titai, Ufi Agitehi Latecha. Adonai Svatai, Svatai Titai, Ufi Agitehi Latecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Ha'akol, V'zocher Ha'se'avot V'ima'ot, U'mevi Geulah Lifnei Bneihem, Le'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atara Le'Hoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofei Holim, Umatir Asurim, Umkayel Emunato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit, Umchaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol, Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kadoshim b'chol yom yachalelucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
In the midst of our prayers and the presence of Torah, so do we think of those in need of healing and strength. Just as Torah has been a source of wisdom as we bring it out and talk about it in the midst of our Shabbat worship, so is Torah a source of hope. As we think of those in need of healing and strength in the midst of our prayers. So we reach out, we touch the Torah, we mention names out loud of those we're thinking of at this time, those in our community. Yisberach, Chavatenu, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Imotenu, Sarah, Kalei, Rachel, Hu Yiberech et the Holy, merciful God, who's blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel. Send your blessings to our loved ones stricken with illness, anxiety, friends and family we think of, Alyssa Ioto and Amy Drysdale Atler, Suzanne Becker, Fran Bernstein, Suzanne Bernstein, Wendy Bratt, Michael Brody, Tivia Caleb at Yosef Azifa, Karen Kasman, Patty Serezny, Ian Cohen, Elise Eden, Michael Eisen, Sandra Elliott, Barbara Esrig, Carl Fisher, Carol Fruman, Ann Gotro, Batia Peshapina, Arthur Greenblatt, Eileen Gunsberg, Enid Gutter, Ava Haber-Kornholm, Ty Hall, Donna Marie Hawk, Eloise Haas, Carol Kaufman, Rosa Kamenko, Scott Klein, Chaya Aviva Bafegla, Karen Coltono, Marta Lazar, Alan Lieberman, Gertrude Levin, Nancy Levine, David Levy, Zoe Marcus, John Marjoram Lace, Len Miji, Gail Mintz, Lev Herschel Bat Ami, Razel Bat Leah Miriam, Eileen Porcelli, Rachel Beit Chaim Bachava, Eve Rader, Marcy Fisher Reiners, Bruce Rubin, Ruben Yaakov Ben Esther Chana, the St. Amman family, Stephen Siegel, Bernard Sklar, Roberta Sanino, Jerry Starnes, Toby Stein, Jerry Steinberg, Guy Stern, Susanna Stern, Lazar Ben Etel, Barbara Weinstein, Harit Zapata, and all the names in our hearts. Baruch Atah Adonai Falim. Bless you, God, and give strength to those in need.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor avraham leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach avotenu mikor avraham leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, lateit pila leotzev reshit, shelo asan ki haratzot, velo samanu, kabish b'chol ha'adama, shelo asan kalkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu keho hamona, va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, Liflei Melech Malchei Hamachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'nemar V'haya Adonai B'melech al kol haaretz Hayom hahu Hayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad U'shemo 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 echad.
We're reminded as we prepare for our words of Kaddish, the reality is that the prayer is all about affirming life. That rather than mentioning death as we might expect a prayer to do, instead, the prayer extols the wonders in our world and the blessings that we have. Part of our tradition is reminding us that even in the midst of our pain, we're commanded to give thanks for the gifts that have been a part of our lives, the memories we have, the values that are a part of who we are because of those lives that have touched us. So in this time, this point in our prayers, we turn our thoughts to those who have been taken from our midst in this past week and month who Shloshim, we mark friends and family of our community. Rosalind Levy, Eric Pearl, Simon Merkus, Dee Dee Lynn, Glenn Sikora, Tracy Cohen, Herb Crickstein, Betty Enton, Bernard Malmud, Barbara Gordon Clavons, Sammy Rader, Linda Lipson, Gloria Sellers, Nancy Pierce. Linking their names and names as yort sites we mark on this Shabbat, those anniversary of passing we love and we commemorate. Julie Cahill, Sidney Chiswick, Samuel Cohen, Richard Elconin, Sam Fishman, Paul Fulton, Manny Foner, Eleanor Gallick, Sidney Geller, Margaret Goralnick, Lori Haber Buckfire, Stephen Hoff, Larry Klegman, Irving Cleef, Sarah Nadal, Sheila Naster, Max Nosenchuk, Ray Pivos, Toiva Raval, Betty Rosenblatt, Bertha Rosenfeld, Ernestine Schott, Anita Silberman, Theodore Silverman, Stephen Louis Slomovitz, Milton Smith, Diane Stahl, Jacob Tauber, Frederick Edward Tauber Hike, Jeffrey Jacob Tauber Hike, Betty Olis, and Betty Orosky. And linking their names, all names we do not recite in this Shabbat, those every faith and family, those whose lives have touched ours, as well as those who have no one to stand and say Kaddish for them. So do we stand together now as one community, as one family, enjoying the immortal words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yikadal, v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yama divrach chirutei v'yamich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayetechol Beit Yisrael, Bagalal ubizman karib imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach ve'olam mamea Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'nadar v'naleh v'nalal shemei d'kudesha b'richu v'ela min kol birachata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata tamram b'yama v'imru, amen. Yehei shama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Hoseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. The source of peace and peace to those who mourn and comfort to those who are bereaved here and everywhere. And let us say, amen. Please be seated.
Hoseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Shalom bimromav uya'aseh shalom alenu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav uya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav uya'aseh shalom alenu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, Nathan Moskowitz.
Thank you.
Thanks for Nathan for jumping in with the canner being away, and he happens to be home before he moves to Chicago for a few more days, so we got him here to help us out. So thanks, Nate. And I usually wouldn't be so direct with the song leader as I was. Sorry. Yeah, you saw that, right? So a few things to share. We have Adult Ed coming up, Tea Talk and Torah on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Our TSS Bike Club is starting up. On next ride is on July 30th at 11 at Indian Springs Metro Park. You can look to your links there online and you'll see how to sign up for that. Thanks to a few of our members who are coordinating that. And what else? Oh, our preschoolers and young families gathering at the zoo on August 6th with a pizza lunch. Look for that information. And of course, our first ever Shir Shalom camping trip on August 11th through 13th for families or for anyone who wants to go out and have fun. Not me. But anyway, Rabbi Daniel's really looking forward to that. It's going to be a great time. Did I speak my thought bubble again? I hate when I do that. So, I said that, I just got home from Israel, and so I want to talk about Israel for a moment and share a few thoughts, see your thoughts as well, because Israel's obviously in the news a lot these days, and with the protests. When we were there on Monday, it was declared a day of disruption by the protesters, and we were actually doing our archaeological dig that day. So those who've been with me to Israel, remember when we go out to Beit Guvrin outside Jerusalem, it's about 40 minutes. So the highway literally was shut down by the protesters. But I had a great Arab bus driver who took us to the West Bank, and between him and Waze, we got there in 50 minutes. So you just gotta know what you're doing there. And our bus driver, and that just, he was a wonderful Arab gentleman, Amin, who took good care of our kids for the 4 weeks we were there. I was blessed to be there the last week and a half of the trip with the Tamarack TLV kids, the rising seniors in high school. Bunny's grandson was there, and she's whispering something inappropriate that either he did or I did when we were on the trip together. So anyway, so it was good to be there. And I'll talk about the protests in a moment too, because some of you who were with me in Israel, the bombs, when we were there a few months ago, on Saturday night, on Motzei Shabbat, I went out to the protests and participated in that. I wanted to do that on Saturday night, 2 weeks ago when we were in Jerusalem. Huge protests every Saturday night. I think we're on like week 29 now of protests going on every Saturday night. But it's gotten so extreme that this past week it was on Tuesday. Again, last week was Monday. And so there's concern because of what the government's doing. But it felt good to be at those protests because they were peaceful protests. And you saw people of all stripes, right? It felt such a good cross-section of Israeli society that made me so affirmed. There were young people and older people, there were couples, there were gay couples, there were families, there were Orthodox families, all protesting together. And what's really cool is that they are all holding the Israeli flag. In this country, our flag has become, unfortunately, sort of weaponized in a sense by, certain right-wing groups. And some of us see a flag and we're like, we should love our American flag. And we're sort of feeling differently at times about that right now. In Israel, cross section, everyone's holding the flag and wrapping themselves in that. And it's a sense of like we want to take care of Israel. I don't know. So it felt good to be in Israel itself and with our teens. And it's summertime, so there's no clouds in the sky. And for the first time in probably 20 years, we hiked Masada at sunrise. Why do I say the first time? Because I don't do that anymore. We go at, like, what time did we go, Melders, when Wines? We went like at, we went at 3 in the afternoon because it was December and it was lightning on Masada and we had to run off the mountain. That was a different story. But we did chase flash floods, so that was really cool. Nonetheless, in the wintertime we go, you can go all day long. Summertime, the snake path is only open until 7 in the morning because it gets so hot down there. And so we decided we weren't going to do it. We'd go, I'm like, it's boring touring Masada in the summer daytime, taking the cable car up there. And it's great. Another King Herod's palaces and fortresses. And yeah, the Jews had a yay strong, and then you know what happened. So anyway, but there's something about going up there at sunrise. And so being there with Bunny's grandson at 4:30 in the morning, hiking up there, and literally watching the sun rise over the Dead Sea. And there's a beauty in that, and seeing that pride of the sun coming up over the hills of Moab, the mountains of our Bible, which is Jordan, coming and bringing light into Israel is a really cool thing. You did it when you were there in high school, yeah? So I'm glad I did that. And I got to meet in person for the first time Rabbi Mike Moskowitz. So that was, for those who don't know, he's the ultra-Orthodox rabbi in New York City, who is a scholar in residence at Congregation Bet Simchat Torah, the largest LGBTQ community in the world, congregation. He has amazing stories. We taught on Zoom together a number of times. We're blessed with the same name, though he's Rabbi Mike Moskowitz. I'm Rabbi Michael Moskowitz, for the record. And the coolest thing is he took his hat off, and he's bald like me too, and we actually sort of look alike, minus the beard and the black suit and the black tie and the seat. But besides that, we do. So I went on Shabbat. I took a cab on Shabbat. He did not. And I met him, and we sat for a few hours and hung out and talked about programs and opportunities. And so hopefully he'll be coming here as a scholar in residence this year. And so I'm excited for you all to meet him. But he gave his time, and he came to meet with our high school kids on Sunday night. And that was really, you could hear a pin drop. For half an hour, just talking, taking their questions. Of our group of 47, 12 of the kids were Israelis from our partnership region. So the Israelis seeing, first of all, I like to shatter stereotypes when I get to Israel and I meet Israelis, and these kids are expecting, there's a rabbi on our bus, and they meet me. He was what they expected, but then he shatters even more stereotypes. So that's awesome, telling you about him. So that made it special too. But Israel is at a crisis moment, and I do not take that lightly, and it's concerning. I don't know how many of you read or listened to President Herzog's speech at the joint session of Congress on Tuesday. So great that the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, was invited to America and spent the week in D.C. and then traveling around to other Jewish communities. And so his speech, I thought, was brilliant in what he said. And Herzog is a centrist, center-left person, but someone who is so articulate and connected with diaspora Judaism as well, contrary to the current government of Israel, right? The president is a dignitary in Israel, as opposed to who's elected by the sitting, Knesset. The Knesset, the parliament of Israel, elected by the people, of course, is it's a coalition government that excludes all of us here right now and is causing a lot of problems. But what he said was a few things. He said the Israeli national anthem, Hatikva, the Song of Hope. The late Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs wrote that in Judaism, hope is an active virtue which requires a great deal of courage. Hope is the belief that together we can make the world better. We can overcome any setbacks and heal the fractures in our world. Israel's first 75 years were rooted in an ancient dream. Let us base our next 75 years on hope, our shared hope, that we can heal our fractured world as the closest of allies and friends. So lots of standing ovations, bipartisan support, beautiful that happened. But what I like is that two things. One, the president of Israel used a rabbi, a great rabbi of the diaspora. Rabbi Sachs was the chief rabbi of Great Britain for a number of years, was knighted actually, and a brilliant rabbi who died just 2 years ago. So he's quoting a rabbi in diaspora, right? Like one of us. Number two, he reinterpreted the Israeli national anthem, right? Usually, the word Hatikva, the hope, the Israeli national anthem, the words are translated as to be a free nation in our land. And he translated as to be healing a fractured world as our responsibility. That Israel must be an Or Goyim, a light to the nations. And so what that means is different. Like Israel is a state. Israel is our home. That's not changing. That's a reality. Now what are we going to do with it? And how does that include us? And that's where the protests come to mind and the challenges, and I support them. And I'm concerned because for those who aren't aware, the current government is trying to do a judicial reform. So they don't have, like we do, 3 branches of government with this true separation of them and the balance of powers. For them, they have the Supreme Court and they have the Knesset, right? And so what they're trying to do is that the Supreme Court will be, in a sense, approved by the Knesset. So that means the Prime Minister can make sure he gets the judges he wants, right? And they can actually a law that will, the Supreme Court the Knesset can overturn rulings of the Supreme Court. Granted, I'd like to overturn some of our Supreme Court's rulings of late, but that's not how our government works. And that's not how Israel's government should work either. So that's why these protests are happening. Histradut, the largest labor union in Israel, that represents, I think, 400,000 workers, which represents 20% of the country with all of their families, is saying that if they go forward with this, they will go on strike. That will shut down the country completely. The physicians said that they will go on strike too. So is that a good thing? Like doctors say, we're not going to work. I mean, what happens if it's your parent who's sick and needs emergency surgery, right? So how do we feel about that? Rabbi Daniel Gordis had an essay, so he's a centrist as well. He's not a left-wing figure. He's not a right-wing. He's a real centrist, American Jew, made Aliyah, and teaches in Israel. And he said, if they don't do that, what will we say if Israel approves these laws? Because what many Israelis are saying, if these laws are approved, then Israel will be like Turkey. Israel will be a dictatorship. So it will be a theocracy where, again, for us as progressive Jews, as liberal Jews, we're not accepted by this right-wing government. There is a great rabbi in the Knesset who's a Reform rabbi, right? So pull up his writings, brilliant. He's part of our community, and his voice is loud and clear. And it's not that we're trying to exclude traditional Judaism in any way, but just like our country should be accepting of all, so should Israel too. So I'm concerned. I still believe in going to Israel. The Bombs and I argued about this, and I won because they went to Israel with me. And now, because Alan asked the question, I'm sorry, Alan, to call you out like this, but I'm not calling you out. You said a good point. Because Alan said, is it right to go to Israel right now when we feel so strongly in opposition to what the government is doing, right? Is that appropriate of us to do? And I said, I completely agree with you that I am opposed to what the government's doing. But it doesn't mean my love for Israel is diminished in any way. That as an American Jew, I have an Ahavat Zion, and so I feel really passionate about that and want people to go to Israel. It's why one of our missions is to get as many of us to Israel as possible to have that experience, because for me, it makes my Judaism richer as an American Jew and makes that sense of connection deeper as well. And so what I love, the coolest thing for me always on these trips is when I'm with Israelis and they see Reform Judaism and they're like, oh, I like that Judaism. Like, because they thought Judaism only has a black hat and tzitzit, and men and women are separate and is sometimes demeaning to people like us. And these secular Jews are very much like us, and they have this opportunity to see, wow, you can have Judaism like we do it, and they really enjoy that. And so that's something really worthwhile, and I appreciate it. And so I still have hope when I read Herzog's words in our capital and in our Congress, and even what the government's doing today in Israel because of the amount of protests and people saying, I can't be silent, and we will do this together. So that's where I am right now. Questions? about any of the above or anything else on Tish. I just want to tell you what I was thinking about in the plane flight home. Okay, truth is, I was watching the end of Lincoln Lawyer. Just kidding. Not really. Or I was watching Rough Diamonds. Right? In Flemish. My Flemish has really gotten good now. So, no questions, no thoughts, nothing for Tish?
Say hello in Flemish.
Yes. Thanks for saving me from that. So, what do I think could be a positive result from what I saw? The question is, how much chicken is Netanyahu playing? Right? And because Netanyahu's not a religious man. He's gotten into bed, sort of like sometimes people in our government, make alliances with evangelicals and people they don't agree with because it serves their purpose. So same thing with Netanyahu. The man was in Europe and he was seen eating pork. I'm not judging anyone who eats pork. Don't worry. That's not what I'm saying. But here, the people he's in the coalition with that's an abomination. So he wants to protect himself. He wants to keep himself out of jail. But I've always believed that Netanyahu did care about Israel and does see the greater good about Israel. Barbie said used to. And that's my concern, that what is his selfish agenda stronger than what benefits the country now. So, Daniel Gordis was asking a question, how far will his game of chicken go? And will he, because he's the one person who can stop this. And that's what I think the country and strikes getting harmed enough and the economy being impacted enough that he will change. Well, he will change his coalition because there are others he could join a coalition with and change the government too. And let's see if he leaves that side, and that's what I'm hoping for. And that's why I want loud voices protesting. So, yeah, Alan? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was looking for that. So last time we were there, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, when right before it was about to get passed, some of Netanyahu's coalition of his own party from Likud said enough, and they said we're not comfortable with this, and they threatened to leave his party, and so or leave the coalition, which would make the government fall. I mean, that's what some people want is the government to fall ultimately. And we've only had 5 elections in 4 years, right? Because we need another one, but. I don't know right now, and I'm hoping, rational voices will come forward who care about the country, as opposed to zealots like Ben Gvir and these homophobic individuals, these individuals who wave their guns around on the Temple Mount. We actually got to go on the Temple Mount when we were there. We didn't go last winter. We weren't allowed up on the Temple Mount. We weren't able to go up there. So not often can we go. We were able to go with the teens up there, and almost lost your grandson, but that's a different story. So, just kidding, sort of, not really. Anyway, so, and culturally, I find it worth, I first went up there in 1977, I think, 79, and we were able to go into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Only Muslims today are allowed to go into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? You have to say the, watchword of the faith to get in, to prove you're a Muslim, to go in. So we went up there with a Palestinian guide and an Israeli guide side by side, the dual narrative program we were doing, and learning from both of their experiences. And so it was a cool, cultural thing. Why does this Temple Mount matter? Why does the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Dome of the Rock, matter? And what this means to us. And so, but you see now extra security up there, not to protect me, not to protect, it's because of these religious Jews who come up there and want to try to make a statement. So you can't walk up onto the Temple Mount wearing a Jewish star, wearing a yarmulke, anything, because there have been some Israelis who've gone up, some who went up covertly and did a wedding up there, and then quietly, and then broadcast it on YouTube and said, mocking the Muslim population, look what we've done on your holy site. And like they're trying to start a war up there. And so these extra police that go, and so we saw one gentleman, it was pointed out, and you saw 4 police were walking around with him the entire time he was up at Temple Mount. So we didn't have guards like that, you know. We just had our own. We always travel with a medic and a guard, our whole group, but it was just different, you know, because we're with teens. So really a unique perspective in seeing what's happening. And these people disgust me and their behavior. And that's not, again, what Israel. I mean, Ben Gvir is a supporter of Mayor Kahane, right? Not someone who would ever set foot in our synagogue, let alone, you know, and he was a violent man too. Of course, he was, you know, murdered, he was assassinated, but and not what we're suggesting for people, but, you know, he was such a threat to others and to the non-Jewish world. Yes, Marilyn. Whose advantage was the president speaking to the Congress? Do you mean in Israel or America? Well, I think it lifts Israel. You know, it makes Israelis feel like America. So there's no doubt Biden was holding out to invite Netanyahu because he, you know, like President Biden, I don't think Israelis should be building more settlements in the West Bank, right? I don't think that, and again, the government issues of the legislative reform that they're trying to create. So these are all things that I agree with people in this country who don't like what's happening in Israel, as most Israelis don't. That being said, while Netanyahu wasn't, I think, invited here until this past week. So at the end of the day, Biden says, listen, I'm meeting with people in China, I'm meeting with people, you know, in other countries that have challenging leaders and politics, and so Israel is an ally of this country and still is a democracy. And so first, having Herzog came was a big statement, and I think the idea, as we always say, bipartisan support. I don't care what your party is, it's about supporting Israel and what matters there. So, but at the same time, I'm not going to the Free Press and having this conversation, right? This is just among us. I know it's on YouTube now too. But the idea of what we, right, it's like when the Free Press calls me about something that's happened in Israel and asks me, I answer the question differently because there's enough people who are against Israel in this world. This is, you know, a family conversation, even though some people don't consider us part of the family, right? So, speaking of family, I have some young people here who are getting antsy and need to join me up here for a motzi. But first, we join with Nathan as we rise together and give thanks for the sweetness of this day and raise our glass of wine together and sing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei hagafen. I don't have enough hands. Oh. Will you undo that for me, Doctor, please? Joel, you got it. Well, no, someone might want to take it. And, okay, Lindsay. Come on, up here. Yeah. Girls. Yeah. Perfect. Any of our people who have not been bar bat mitzvah want to join me up here to help me with the challah? Do you guys all like gluten? It's all yours then. No reamers want to come join me? No? Okay, fine. You guys ready? Want to take that with me? Ha-motzi lechem in haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Ha-motzi lechem in haaretz. Amen. Okay, pull off a little. Have some challah. Don't you want some? Well, take some. Come on, take some, and then go pass us around. Go bring us to your family. Who's going to carry this now and go bring it to someone? Well, your parents aren't very happy with you right now because they wanted the challah. We ask for God's blessing as we come together as a community, as we bless one another at these times. Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you. May God protect you.
Adonai panav Elecha v'yichuneka.
May God's light shine upon you and be good to you.
Yisa Adonai b'nav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May God always be a part of who we are as individuals, as a community, as we look to our friends in Israel and give them hope and we stand with them in support. But all of our hopes and all of our dreams, but most of all, blessing us with shalom, with peace.
V'yasem lecha shalom.
Thank you again, Nathan, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone.